Alright, sorry about that, y'all. So, of course, one of the challenges of working from home is contending with all the other members of the house, both human and non-human. So, anyway, so let's continue on here. So, I believe I left off talking about rhetorical devices, the rhetorical matrix, ethos, pathos, logos, and kairos. So, you as the writer should be considering how those different rhetorical devices play into the way you're constructing your arguments. How are you building your credibility as a writer? How are you building common ground between you and your readers? How might emotion play into your credibility, for one thing? So remember, humor is something that could add, but of course we want to make sure it's appropriate. Sometimes humor can undercut if we're being overly humorous or maybe not serious enough. That could undercut our credibility as writers. Of course, this is a research-based essay, so logos is a key thing. We want to make sure that we're basing our perspectives and ideas off of good evidence, right? And of course, kairos, making sure that everything is relevant. It's the opportune moment for certain ideas or points to be made. But again, I want to emphasize the importance to remember that they all work together, right? So ethos, pathos, logos, and kairos in any given moment, especially if it's a good argument, they should be working together, right? But thinking about those things, as well as all the different ideas that we've read about so far, and everything's an argument, it's really important to consider that as we're writing this. That's one of the main reasons we're reading that book, right? We're challenged to write a conclusion that does not simply summarize our paper. So if we just summarize our essay, that's the carryover of the 5-paragraph essay, right? Again, we're moving beyond that. You want to remind your readers of maybe some of the main points that you're trying to get across, but an effective conclusion often answers what we call the so what question. And remember, when we say that in conversation, your friend says something and you respond, so what? We mean that we want to know the significance of it. Why is this important? Why should I care? What's the why does this matter? So think about the bigger picture here. Why is this important? Why should we care? You also might think about the future. If things were to change, how would that affect the future? Or if things were to stay the same, how would that affect the future? Or if more people were to go along with your ideas, how would that affect the future? So think about that in your conclusion. We're challenged to create a title that conveys the purpose of our paper and follows the title-subtitle pattern. So this is something that we are challenged to do with Major Essay Project 1, have a title but also colon subtitle. So the title is something that catches your reader's attention, and the subtitle is what explains what that title means. So it gives an indication of what your paper is about. So just by reading your title, your reader should have an inkling of what the focus is of your essay. We're challenged to show ownership and pride over our work, taking care to eliminate major or distracting spelling, grammatical, and typographical errors. So really showing that we care about this thing that we've created. We're putting it into the world. We want to make sure that it's a good representation of the hard work that we put into it. Because whether we like it or not, anything that we produce is a representation of us as people, right? So we want to make sure that people are going to be able to have good judgment of us based off of the work that we put into the world. And then finally, we're challenged to format our essays according to MLA guidelines. So at 12-point Times New Roman font, double spaced, 1-inch margins on all 4 sides. And of course, especially in something like a work or a research paper, we want to make sure that we have a works cited page, because we're going to be dealing with a lot of different sources, so it's important that we're documenting all of those sources, keeping them in our works cited page. Okay, so I want to go ahead and just highlight the due dates. So the annotated bibliographies, and I'll go ahead and post a video about that explains what these are about. So it's broken into 2 sections just to spread it apart. If we just had to submit all 6 annotations for all 6 sources all at once, I have a feeling we'd all be up really late trying to get it all done at the wire, and that's just not going to be a very good workflow for us. So I split it into 2. So the first installment of it, Annotated Bibliography 1, is due Sunday, April 19th via turnitin.com just by midnight. Annotated Bibliography number 2 with 3 new sources that we will potentially use in our essay, due Sunday the 26th of April. again through Turnitin by midnight. Draft 1 of Major Essay Project 2 Reboot is due Sunday, the 3rd of May, and that's just at least 4 full pages. So just getting going on it, and that will be due via Turnitin by 11:59 p.m. And then draft number 2 is due Sunday, 17th of May, and this is going to be a little bit more, so we have at least seven full pages, and that's due by Turnitin by midnight. And then the polished draft, the one that we're releasing into the world, the one we want the people to see, the one we've worked so hard on polishing, making look real shiny. I want this to be so shiny, so polished, that when I look at it, my eyes just melt out of my head because it's so shiny, so polished. You work so hard on it, and it's a good representation of all of that work you put into it. So that's due Sunday, the 24th of May, which, if you're following along, you'll notice that that is the very end of the semester. And so that will be the full 8 to 10 pages, and that's due through Turnitin by 11:59 p.m. So I have some notes here I want us to consider. This will influence the way that we approach this project, so it's really important that we consider these. So the first note, for this major essay project, you must submit all components. So both of the ANBIBs and all 3 of the drafts in order for it to be considered complete. Okay, so that's really important that we're following along with this schedule, making sure that we're getting these things in on time, and that we have all 5 components. So ANBIB 1, ANBIB 2, Draft 1, Draft 2, Polish Draft, in order for this project to be considered complete. Okay, so really important. Additional note. In our writing, we are encouraged to embrace confusion and contend with complexity, and so that's a little phrase I'm borrowing from Miller and Jurecic from their book Habits of the Creative Mind, mentioned in the prompt above. So again, we want to embrace confusion. We don't want to shy away from the things that don't make sense to us immediately. If we embrace confusion, that's the potential site for learning, because we're trying to figure it out, right? We're trying to make better sense of it. So approach your essay with these attitudes in mind. Rather than try to show your reader what you already know. So again, that's kind of the argument as debate. I'm trying to prove I'm right. So rather than trying to show your reader what you already know, try to show your reader how you worked your way through through something that you didn't already know. You're not trying to prove that you're right about something. Again, I want to emphasize that. Use your writing as a way of learning for you, and that will influence your tone. If we're not trying to prove that we're right or trying to convince or persuade our readers, then our tone's going to be a little bit more even-handed. It's going to be more invitational, because a lot of times if we feel like we're being yelled at, so say we go start reading something and we feel like the writer's yelling at us, trying to prove that they're right, we don't want to read it. That's the reality. So it's more effective just to take your readers on a journey of how you're putting these different sources in conversation with one another to create new meaning, again, to synthesize these ideas. Based on all this research, here's what I think and here's why I think it. Simple as that. You're not trying to come out the winner here. Additional note, additional note, so double additional note. So like I mentioned, this essay project, Major Essay Project 2, is a reboot, meaning we scrapped the initial prompt for what I introduced to you guys all those weeks ago when we are still meeting in person, and we created a new one. And so if you wish to continue on with that topic, as long as it's not one of the ones listed in the list of topics to avoid, then you can do so, okay? Now what you'll need to do, I don't want you just to take what you wrote for that one, which we're now considering short response essay 2, and just kind of add more pages to it. We can't do that. But you can still research that topic, and if you're still interested in that, then continue on. And quite honestly, that will probably make for a better paper, because you're getting even more immersed in that topic. You're finding more sources, you're thinking more deeply about it. And some of us might even end up changing our minds, which ultimately is what good writing should do. It should help us think new thoughts. So if you have any questions about this, please let me know. I'm happy to talk with you about it. I can offer you some guidance. If you maybe are a little concerned about a topic and you just want to, again, bounce ideas off me, that's fine. Send me a message and we can talk about it. Now, here I'm not going to go through all of these. These are just some important and relevant quotations from Linserd and Ruskovich's Everything's an Argument. Things for us to think about for this project. So some of these you may have already read through because it was for the section we read for last week, but others it's for the section that we're reading this week, and others maybe in the future. So read through these quotations. That will help set the tone for this to give you a little bit more guidance and things to consider as you work through this. All right, y'all. Well, that about does it for Major Essay Project 2 Reboot explanation. Send me your questions if you have any.